Oh, nice. Those were good. I remember
Yeah,
those.
leftover
I had a
from
little agua.
oh, well, yeah, it's stomach flu. Hey,
Yeah.
if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks, Thursday night, 27th of January. It's 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. If you caught this any other time than that, you've just caught the recorded version. If you joined us last week, no pregame beer for me this week. So hopefully, although I went back, Mike can watch it. It wasn't as bad as I thought
No,
it was.
wasn't at
Yeah.
all.
I
No,
just
you
felt
were
like
good.
I felt like I was stumbling over a lot of words last
No,
week.
you weren't.
But that pregame beer kind of got it made. We will do a show beer. Joe, I found one of these, a little what did I say? Little Wheeze?
Little wheezy.
Little Wheezy. There it is. Little Wheezy. I found one of
Little.
these
Can't be counted little.
Easy Breezy IPA. Yeah, that's what it's from. Lost 40 is the brewing company there in Arkansas. And Joe, I think you sent this a while ago, and I think it's just been sitting in my fridge. And I was like, tonight's the night.
That's a good one.
Tonight's
Those are my favorites.
the night. Ooh, you can smell, man. I may have to get my backup beer on this one. This may be too
Did it
hoppy.
sit too long? Oh, hoppy. Got it.
I could smell the hops right out of the chute. So Joe, thanks for sending those. This is Joe. It's the very last. Oh, we need to turn on let's get the translator going. Sorry, guys. I had said before that we're using a translator app. Let me put that in the chat too. I think maybe that's still in my buffer. Let's see. Yeah, it is. There we go. If you're in the chat room, there's a link. We're using a translation app tonight, just as we broadcast. I don't know if it's something
I'm watching
do
it come across in English. Sorry, it's just like super fascinating to me.
Isn't it
in
cool?
live time, like I'm seeing your stuff in English. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good and pretty accurate. I mean, and you'll see it stop and back up on some words. It'll do some things, and especially on the translation side. Just for you in the pre-show, if you go up to the upper right-hand corner, hit the three dots, you can change the language if you want. If you know another language other than English, you can switch that. I would switch it and kind of restart your browser, and then it will just show in language what we're saying.
Do you have the ability
We're going
to
talk about this on the show, but
me out of yours? Because I'll pipe in my own, and that way it would separate us.
Can I take you?
Meaning, can you send just your mic to
the
translator?
I could, but right now I've got a combined. So if we did it again, I wouldn't want to, because I'd have to take some things down.
Yeah, we want to, but like in the future,
yes,
I could just, because I'm in the conversation, I could click my mic, put it on my mic, and then you and I would come across as a separate.
Ask me that question again in the show when we're talking about it, because I think that'll be, very appropriate. So if you want to jump in there through that link in the chat room, it is, yeah, and then YouTube. Yeah, that's true. They're watching us on YouTube, so that's interesting. Maybe in theory, I should be transcribing the YouTube video so that it's in sync, because they're actually seeing what we say before we say it right now.
Yeah,
that's good. I didn't think of that. That's a good catch. Okay,
so if we were to curse, you would hear. You might miss out on the censorship that we have on this show. There's live censorship, guys. I can say Jim, and it does, just bleeps me out automatically. It's part of the experience here.
You son of a.
Yeah, see, it just it's automatic. It just works really well.
Oh, it's automatic. It works. It just works. It just works really well. It's automatic. It works. If you just keep reading so
does it say bleep? That'd be great. Oh no, it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't do sounds.
Yeah,
it doesn't do sounds. So, but pretty cool. We'll talk about it here on the show. Thanks for coming out.
Jim's whole intro of this episode is gonna.
I did an episode one time where we took, and it was Christian, and every time he said HP, I
bleeped it out.
Bleeped it, and it's funny if you just pick a word and bleep it. It kind of sounds like you're potentially swearing through the whole thing.
Have you seen those Disney fixes where they just bleep words out of Disney shows, and all they do is bleep it, and it just sounds way worse if they bleep out random words? It's hysterical.
Brian in the translator chat put the equivalent of what it should have been with all the asterisks.
There you go.
Stuff like that. Okay, well, we'll talk about that we got that coming up. I'll start. I've got an update on the 5G stuff, and Mike does too. Apparently, Cox has not been very kind to him.
Yeah, no kidding.
Man, this is IPA all the way. Man, oh man, oh man. That's a bitter.
Let's delay the show by 45 minutes. I'll come grab that from you.
Yeah, exactly. It says it's easy breezy. It's fruity, that's for sure, and a little hoppy.
Take the Go XLR away from Mike.
You remember this one?
Yeah, I like that one. That was one where you gave me extra. Actually, you gave me 2 of those.
Yeah,
or 3 of them, maybe
not as big. But I don't know. Maybe I should try. IPAs a little bit more. There's such good ones now.
There are. Yeah.
It's
one of those you either know you like it or you don't, and that
Yeah. It's not a matter of not liking it. It's I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it. It just leaves a bitter taste in your mouth.
It's like me with straight bourbon. I really wish I was a bourbon guy. I just can't do it straight.
Yeah.
Except for actually, I take that back. Any of the ones you brought over, not bourbon, you've done Jeff. And
I brought over Jefferson's.
So
yeah, that's
maybe
great
it's just having the right ones is the key.
My kids, every time they come over and that, we'll be whatever. And they'll pour themselves, a little splash, and they always take a drink and go, "Oh, this is so good."
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, this is so good. We did last weekend. We did a bourbon tasting. Did I talk about that on the show?
Okay.
Yep. So was out at Phil's place, my oldest, today. Took a break and went over there. He's off work. He starts a new job on Monday, so I was over there just hanging out with him. And he was like, I think I'm ready for another, bourbon tasting. And this next time, we're gonna do Blanton's. Because I've gotten a bottle, well, you probably don't. Blanton's really hard to get. It's not terribly expensive. Maybe $60, but it's really hard to get. And then we got some Woodford, which is really good. And I got some. I'm going to get some Maker's. Maker's Mark is another bourbon. And I'm picking up some Old Forester. So we're gonna do another, and then my number 4 son goes, I want in on that. Like, how do I?
Don't let the
how do I get in this bourbon tasting? So it's different when you compare them side to side. When you've got, and we just get the little red solo cups and just fill it up to the first line, just a sip or two, rinse it out, do another pour. But you can really tell the differences between them when you spend some time doing that way. So it's a good hey Marv, good to see you. Welcome back. Hope things are well with you. We missed you last week. We'll get you back on as things settle down for you. So thanks for coming out. Mike, I recommend I do really recommend doing it that way. It's a great if you can get hold 4 or 5. It's pretty good. I mean, you're pretty hammered by the end. It's pretty great. It is pretty great. Peter, welcome. Good to see you. First time in the live show.
Welcome, Peter.
Always like those. Uncle Marv is back. Good to see you, Mystic.
And if anyone in the chat tonight speaks fluently another language, this is where we really recommend. There's a link Jim posted. We're going to be talking about the Google Translation app. Go in there and set your language to your other, besides English, if you speak in another language natively, if I can speak tonight. And maybe we'll utilize you to kind of test this out, because it's meant to be kind of a flowing conversation between different languages. And I don't speak another language. I speak very broken Spanish. So, and Jim, I don't think you don't speak anything other fluently, do you?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
German, a little German, but it's super rusty.
Yeah.
I lived there for
and then there's a difference between speaking it and trying to spell it out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, listen, I can barely speak English. Let's just be clear about that. Joe says the YouTube's behind the translator about 10 seconds. That's actually maybe an advantage. It'd be interesting, when you're trying to listen to this and read it, and it's happening when the writing is behind the speaking, it's hard to concentrate. I wonder if that's different in this case, where the writing is actually ahead of the speaking. So love to have some of your feedback in chat. But Peter says, Mike, He's the one that sent you the weather station.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that was really cool. He sent me a really cool use case for, and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially how the local weather stations, you could pick up the difference in pressure, I think it was, when this volcano erupted and it wasn't even extremely close to them, I don't think, but just like the difference in how that affected these local weather stations that people had, which I thought was really, really cool. That is something that I would love to track on kind of the, local phenomena that affect things in your area, and you can track it. And it's really cool.
There's a big open source weather community of weather stations.
What was that website you brought up?
Oh, Windy.
Windy.
Windy.com.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, windy.com. I threw the link in to the transcription app in there one more time. We'll do it. If you want a separate window, open that up, put it next to the video. We're going to be talking about that a little bit tonight. Pretty cool. I'd kind of tell you how I got there too when we do it. So, all right, let's get this thing going. Thanks for coming out. Dan popped in as well. Dan, good to see you. Happy Thursday evening to you as well. And Alex is checking in as well. So let's do this thing. Here we go.
Yep.
This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 522, recorded on January 27th, 2022. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios. Here, Mike, this is the kind of winter weather I'm kind of into. Like, it's 30, it was 45 this afternoon or something. It'll dip into the 20s tonight. And then we got a little weird rain. That was kind of weird too.
Only thing could make it better though is if we had like 2 feet of snow on the ground with some warm weather, right? That cool where you can go sledding, have a bunch of snow. I know we got a good amount of snow about a week ago though, so enough to take the kids sledding and have a good time. But yeah, I agree. If we're gonna have winter weather, this is the type I'll take.
This is the kind to have. Yeah. Hopefully you're in a warm spot. It was so cold the other night. I went to bed with a hoodie on, put the hoodie up. Now listen, that's a great way to sleep, by the way. I don't know why I don't do that more often. I was just toasty warm. I should wear a hat more when I sleep because it's just delightful. Of course, what else is delightful is the show notes. Tonight there'll be a few out at the AverageGuy.tv. Don't forget we do the YouTube premiere noon on Saturday. So if you want to join us, noon Central on Saturdays. If you want to join us for that, head out, go to the AverageGuy.tv/YouTube. That's how you can remember it. Subscribe to it. You'll see on Saturday mornings when I put the premiere out there, and then we watch it together. And we have 5 or 6 guys show up every week, and it's a ton of fun. So let's get that done every Saturday, Mike. I think I'm going to stick with it. It's kind of fun to get it done that way. No live show. Just a programming note. No live show next week. That's the 3rd of February. Both Mike and I have conflicts. I'm doing 6 podcasts next week, so at work, it's just like, I don't. I'll be actually doing a live show during this one next week for Gallup. So no live show next week. So take the night off. Listen to someone else's podcast. Dan Lefebvre does Based on a True Story podcast at basedonatruestorypodcast.com. And that'd be a good one to go listen to. He's got some really interesting stuff. So Dan, while you're not here on Thursday, go out and listen to one of Dan's podcasts, and Based on a True Story podcast.com. Post show tonight. So if you're listening live, post show tonight is on Discord. So Mike and I will head over to Discord when we're done here. theaverageguy.tv/Discord. If you haven't done that yet, go do it now. Get set up if you're listening live. And just audio, right? Just an audio chat out there?
Just audio. So when we're done, you'll see a voice channel called Open Chat. We'll hop in there. Again, it's not recorded, not live. And as long as everyone treats it like we're all adults, then it's something we'll look to do maybe once a month. I think we had talked about maybe the last Thursday of every month. But I've been loving the interaction on Discord. I was looking lately, we have almost 200 people in the Discord channel.
Really?
So yeah, we have 136 offline right now. We have 32 online and 3. So we're at about 170, a little over 170. So I've been loving the interaction you guys have been giving out there. So keep it up. You guys have been great.
It is a ton of fun. It's just been really helpful. And the conversation, like you said, the conversation is very constructive. It's just awesome. It's awesome. So as soon as we're done with the show tonight, Mike and I'll head over there. I can't stay too late because I had a project. I was supposed to do a video project at work. It was due Monday. got a note today. Hey, is that video done?
I'm in the same boat, Jim. I'm either up late tonight or up early tomorrow, so I got to decide which one it's going to be.
Yeah,
got some work stuff I got to do.
When that came, get your beeper ready. When that email came across, I went, oh, and like, dang it. Okay, I'll have it done. So I have to finish it tonight so I can upload it to the so I can upload it.
I love using the beeper button.
the emails, I think they go out tomorrow. So I'm not normally that bad, but I totally blew that one. So I'll have to drop off to get that video kind of wrapped up and get done. Big thanks to our Patreon supporters and those folks that do that. I always appreciate you guys each and every month. Thanks for all you do. Mike, a quick update on the 5G of turning in the modem. So this was the week, if you haven't been listening to the show for a while, I've been going through a saga. A couple weeks ago, Christian talked me into buying T-Mobile's 5G service. We installed it week before, talked about a bunch of it last week. So there's some good info, plus some listener calls. Those were fun. So, by the way, if you want to leave a message and get your voice on the show, why wouldn't you? I don't know why more of you don't do this. I'm just going to say it in my best dad voice. I'm a little disappointed with you guys. Okay. HomeGadgetGeeks.com. Head over there. It's one blue button and leave us a message. I mean, leave us a funny message. That would be, I don't know. That's kind of scary, but that would be fun. HomeGadgetGeeks.com. Leave us a message. We'll play it on the show. We'd love to hear from you. So we had some folks call in. Nathaniel and Brian called in last week. Thanks for those calls. But this week, so on Monday, I had some time, Mike. So I called Cox and said, "Hey, I'm canceling you, turning in your equipment." And they were like, "Okay."
That's it.
That literally.
Did they ask like, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" Nothing.
No, nothing. The guy on the phone was like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that." And just a second, verified some information. Okay, I've got your order completed, and we will, you have 10 days to turn your modem in at the store. And I was a little surprised. I was surprised I at least didn't get the what's wrong. Like, what did we do wrong? Or we're going to send you to our retention department. Listen, I could have, on their website, there's a number for their retention department. It must get requested a lot. I don't know, but there's, you can, and I want to just see the experience. Like, what would happen if I just canceled? Right. And apparently nothing.
Well, and I'm wondering if it's one of those from their perspective, kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation of, I'm sure they get a lot of complaints of just let me cancel. Don't try and offer me a million different bundles of discounted prices. And then on the reverse side, you got people who are like, well, I would have stayed if you would have tried to keep me as a customer. And so I'm wondering if they're trying to weigh that balance at all. Cause maybe it was only once when we were moving to this house where I considered switching, and I called them and they did do the whole rigmarole. And this was like 6 years ago of, okay, well, we can decrease our price and we can go to the new customer pricing. And, they did the whole runaround. And it did end up getting me to stay because they did make the price cheaper for the speeds they're offering. But I'm wondering if they're just trying to weigh those differences of all the complaints they get of people who don't like it when they do that.
Yeah, no, that's totally valid, by the way. What you're saying, Mike, totally valid. And I'm not bitter or anything. We talked about this on Discord a little bit. I was like, they're like, I can't wait to see what, Cox says when you go to cancel that. And I think bust out or somebody mentioned that. And I too is kind of anxious, like, I wonder what I'm going to have to, how many times I'm going to have to say, no, this is it,
right.
Or at least throw me a bone of some kind, maybe. No, now I am expecting some kind of call or some kind of marketing from them at some point. I would imagine we'll hit, I'm sure they have an automatic system that goes in for customers that have closed their account. Wrapped up the modem and took it in to the office, dropped it off. The guy said, he said, can I help you? Go in, they put your name in. Can I help you? Yeah, I've canceled my service and I'm turning in my modem. He's like, okay. And he starts, let's verify a few things. And he goes, so where are you moving to? Yep. And he goes, did you want to activate new service? And I'm like, no, I'm canceling, and I've moved to T-Mobile's 5G. Just
trying to trigger them almost.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of throwing that out there a little
trigger
bit.
words you guys need. Canceling for no good reason. Here it is. Different service
I'm
provider.
smiling. I'm not angry.
5G. You're supposed to cut that down and say line access is way better.
Yeah. No. Right on. Right. I mean, when I went in to get the 5G modem from T-Mobile, they were talking crap about.
I'm sure
it's Cox for sure. They're like, "Oh, are you sick of it always, not working?" And
yeah,
I was like, "You guys, I'm here to buy it. You don't need to.
Yeah, you don't need to sell me. I came in telling you what
I'm
I
here.
want.
I'm okay.
No.
I'm okay." So, he's like, still he goes, "You moving?" And I'm like, "No." I told, so I go on 5G. He goes, "Oh, okay. Do you want your receipt?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." So, and gives it to me and says, "Thanks for coming in." Walks me to the door. Now, this is they do this for every customer. They walk them. They walk
It's
them
like
to the
getting
door.
fired.
Kind of felt like it a little bit. Peter says when he canceled Spectrum for T-Mobile, they offered to match the $50 price and lower my cell phone bill if I stayed. He still canceled. But
Ooh, okay.
Peter, that's a little bit of what I was expecting. John says Jim gets zero respect from Cox. Now we have to be careful because Mike is convinced that they are listening to us.
We'll go down to the next comment because Brian's pretty much nailed it.
Okay, right? So Brian says Cox will Cox will just take it out on Mike. Speak too ill of them, and there will be a service outage. Mike?
I'm just saying, talked about this last week. It's all about your experience with your provider. I've had zero issues with Cox, and you guys know I self-host a lot of stuff that needs access from the outside. Very, very limited downtime. The one night, and I posted this in Discord, was out all night. Tuesday, I was out all morning. And I'm like, every time we keep talking about this on the show, Cox turns me off for like a certain period of time. And it's just pretty dang convenient that it's been happening when we've been talking smack on Cox. So if we get Cox, I still love you. By the way, I just want to put that on the record. You've been great for me. T-Mobile's not an option in my area, so I'm not switching. So stop taking it out on me, okay? He's the one who canceled. I'm Mike, still with you.
The translator, when you said smack, it put three dots by the word smack in the transcript. I'm wondering, do you see? Because I do. I have masked profanity. Did it mask the word smack in there? Because it says that what's been happening when I've been talking smack. I wonder.
Yeah,
that's kind of, well, I don't know. I don't know what those three dots mean. All right. Well, it didn't do it to me. So we'll talk more about this translator here in a second. But I just drove home. I was a little sad.
That was anticlimactic. What am I going to talk about on the show next?
It's like when I in high school when I broke up with my girlfriend and she was like, we were together. Right? Oh.
I thought that only happened to me, so I just feel a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, it was you.
Yeah.
Type thing. So, have been having a great service. I mentioned last week that it's, we're talking when we talk about speeds. Here's some history of it. I don't think my IP address is on there anywhere. I think I'm okay. So
it'll change by tomorrow anyway.
Yeah, it's true. It has already changed about 8 times.
Yeah,
so
I know that's what they said. Yeah,
it doesn't really matter what you have. So downloads, we're looking here a peak of about 393. You see some dips in there. These are, you do speed tests and it comes in at 100 or 120. I don't know why. It just is. I think that sometimes depends the service that you're hitting for the test. Maybe depends on what time of the day I was doing it at. Right now, it would be a little rough because it's just evening time. There's a lot of things going on. Right. Up has been just a solid 50. Like, I know there's some dips in this chart that I'm showing you guys, but it literally, I mean, it's just a solid 50, which is great, Mike. We really wanted,
it's 20 better than the highest service you can get from Cox.
Right. And
that's fantastic.
Did I mention unlimited and $50?
Yeah.
And it's literally just $50. Like, You get a bill. It's $50. That's it. Like,
so do you think, is this going to be like YouTube TV?
Yes,
where when YouTube
yes.
TV was first to the market, it was only $40-something when I started. And now for the same exact service, I'm paying $67 a month. Like, are they going to first to the market, and then as soon as it becomes more popular, hike the price up?
The YouTubers that I've been listening to have been saying no, that they're going to honor this price for the long term, whatever that means.
Yeah,
I don't believe it. By the way,
I think they might have to for a while, because for a lot of people, this is still not going to be better than their residential. You were having some severe issues that caused you to pull the trigger. Jim, would you have even considered T-Mobile if Cox had been pretty steady for you?
No.
And so I think they're going to have to honor it for a long time until certain factors happen. I don't even know I'm not smart enough. We'll talk to Christian about those factors need to be, right? For people to start considering a switch. Because I haven't heard many people talking about, should I switch to 5G? I think that's still very a nerd level convo, right? That we're having of, do we switch to 5G? And it's still pretty cool. I'm just now seeing my first advertisements for 5G at home service. And actually they're from Verizon, not even T-Mobile. Right, most of the commercials I'm seeing on TV.
I think you'll get Verizon first before you get T-Mobile in your area, by the way.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah. So, so it's been so far so good. It doesn't mean it's flawless. I've had some video problems with it. Just little. I looked at last week's show, and there's a few spots in there where
very few
my video slowed down and such. And
zero tonight so far.
Oh, good. Yeah. And I listen. This has been a super busy week. I think this is a 7 podcast week for me at Gallup. It just kind of landed that way. I've done them in a bunch of different languages. We'll talk about that here in just a second. And without anybody ever going, what's wrong with your video?
Yeah.
Type deal. So good stuff. I think this will be it for talking about it. If you're thinking about doing something like this, whether it's Verizon or T-Mobile, there are a ton of YouTube videos with folks talking about this stuff, putting antennas in them, hacking on them, doing all kinds of things. T-Mobile software is way behind on this. It's just not great. But you can hack on them pretty hard. You can put external antennas. I will probably end up moving this from down here in the corner of the basement up into the top, because it'll just get me, have a tower that's literally 1 block away.
Yeah.
So it couldn't be a better situation. Putting it upstairs, I just need to drill through the floor so I can run the network cable up through the top or something. But right now, Mike, at those speeds, why would I even worry about it?
Well, yeah, and this is a good time we can talk about the fun. Like when I moved in, I did the wall plates, and a lot of that was doing a wall plate, and they have this drill bit that you can borrow from me into the wall down, and it drills into the floor, but it's in the wall. So that way you don't have just like in the floor of your main room. So then you could do a nice wall plate Ethernet jack. I did keystones all over the house, and I ran those into the basement because my basement's unfinished, kind of like, because yours is unfinished still, right?
No, it's finished. But
okay. But your ceiling is
well, I think I'm going to take that ceiling down anyways. They did kind of a shoddy job when they put it up.
Okay. But you can still get into it without putting it in your hole in your nice main floor. Right. Yeah. So I'll give you that drill, but it's like an 8-foot long pole, and it bends. So you stick it into the wall, and it just goes right into the floor, and you just run your drill, and now you got a hole in the wall cavity.
And I would probably, there's a power plug right there. I would probably just put it close to it, and then
just go on the opposite side, because there's a stud there, because those boxes are on studs. Just go on the opposite side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Although, Mike, it might sit on a sill plate that sits on top of the brick. That may not be. I don't have studs down in that part of the basement, so I may have to think through that. But
these were all internal walls, because you're right. My external hang over the foundation of the basement, so I had to do it on internal walls.
I'd get probably another 100 down and another 25 up if I move that router upstairs. The modem
that's worth
upstairs.
It's a fun project too.
I think so. So we've, like I said, I probably won't spend too much more time. I think it's just switched. We'll have to see. I'll let you know if.
Do you have access to your attic?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You could do what I did. I found one wall cavity, put a PVC pipe straight to the attic, and then I run my cables up to the attic and down that PVC pipe into the basement.
My attic is not. I mean, it's not conditioned at all, and I would be really afraid for that piece. that piece of equipment up there.
Oh,
and
no. I'm saying just to run
holes.
wire. Just Ethernet wire. So then you're running it up into the attic and then down to the basement.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah,
right?
I gotcha.
Instead of down through the floor,
Right,
you're going
right.
up and then back down into one PVC pipe that runs like a conduit, right? That's running all your wires down from the
maybe.
Then we could do a Wi-Fi access point out to your shed. See, this is gonna be a fun little project.
Oh man,
we're gonna have a day this summer.
Or I could just turn on my access point on my phone.
No, harder solution is better.
And get really good. I mean,
get complicated for fun. We've talked about this.
500 down and 100 up.
But, but how fun is that? I mean, that's too easy.
I know it's just crazy.
It's the project.
The things I was doing so that I could avoid swipe hit, like swipe touch.
Yep.
It's so dumb. Sometimes I'm so dumb. So, all right. That we'll put that one to bed. Mike, as you know, and so maybe folks listening, I'm a full-time podcaster at Gallup, and I spend a lot of time when I'm not on Home Gadget Geeks. I spend a lot of time podcasting for them at Gallup, and we don't really talk about it that much here on Home Gadget Geeks, but I mention it, but we don't talk too much about it. We have 6 non-English podcasts that we do. So Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese, French, German, and Spanish are the languages we're in now. And we continue to add. Arabic is coming online here in the next 3 or 4 months. And this was really what kind of drove me to start thinking through some solutions of like, how can I, Arabic's a language we have trouble supporting because we write left to right, it writes right to left. And so our technology solutions aren't great at that. And so we've been struggling a little bit to support the language. I think Hebrew is the same way. And in this conversation that I was having about Arabic, and I've also been wanting to, on these other podcasts that we do where I produce them, I'm sometimes I open them and they translate that and then they go into the show. Sometimes I'm not even on them, but I'd kind of like to know what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I'd kind of like to know in real time. We spent a bunch of time on Ask the Podcast Coach talking about this maybe a couple weeks ago. But it's just been on my mind as far as how can I do a better job of live translations? And I had found a solution inside of Skype. Skype has a translator in it. Most people don't even know what Skype is anymore. like, oh, that's still a thing? Yeah, it's actually Skype is still a thing. You can turn on live translations, and then as you're talking, it will also translate you'll hear a little voice in your head. So somebody will talk and then you'll hear the voice. And you also can get live transcriptions with that. So I've been using that, setting it up on 2 computers, the computer listening to YouTube on one side in one language, then on another Skype instance on my Mac. Those were the 2 connections. It was translating it and I was watching the transcription. Super cool.
Explain real quick, when you're doing these shows in a different language and you are a part of them. So when you're on these shows, I mean, how is this typically working? Like are you kicking them off and then you're hearing, and then these 2 people kick into their native language? You kick it off in English. How does this all work?
Yeah. One of 2 ways. One, I'll open the show just like I do on Home Gadget Geeks, where I'll say, I'm Jim Collison, and this is what do I say? Isn't it weird? Like I'm on Home Gadget Geeks, so I'm kind of geared up for that.
This is Ask the Podcast Coach.
No. Anyways, so I'll say a line and the date. And then they'll repeat that in that language.
Got it.
So I'll have whoever's going to host it, say in Spanish. We did one today. They'll repeat that. They'll say their name, and this is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on, there we go. Recorded on and the date. And then I say, Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. And I have this script that I do a lot like Home Gadget Geeks. Then they repeat that in Spanish, right? So we kind of go back and forth. And then I say, hey, in this case, hey, Blanca, we've got a great guest today. Why don't you take a second to introduce them? And then I drop out and they go full-time Spanish at that point, right? In that case, or in the case of Portuguese, we do that with Portuguese and we do that with Chinese. Those are the Mandarin. Those are the languages we do those in. Japanese, French, and German, they just start the show in that language. And I'm just producing.
Okay.
Right. So But behind the scenes, I'd love to be able to understand what they're saying in real time. Like, so we did this Skype thing. And then when the Arabic came around, I thought somebody said, they were in a training class and they had somebody who spoke Arabic, and their English was a little sketchy. So they used in PowerPoint, they turned on the translator. And I kind of had forgotten PowerPoint has both subtitle and translator built into it.
I didn't know that.
It's insane. Yes,
Oh.
it does. Yeah. Maybe the best translator nobody's ever used. Right.
Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed.
Go into PowerPoint, go up in the ribbon, all the way over to the right, you'll see show transcripts. And then if you drop that menu down, you can see translations in there. And it'll say spoken language, listen to, it doesn't say that, but who's speaking and who's listening and what languages do you want? And it'll translate it for you. Right. So that's super cool. So I started messing around with PowerPoint, and then I thought, this isn't going to work because it's just 2 lines on the bottom of a PowerPoint thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's not enough. Like that is definitely not enough. If you've been following along, and I just put the link in the chat here to our instance of us now. Now it's not translating us. If you've signed in to Microsoft Translator, it's at translator.microsoft.com. You'll see it's transcribing the English. So if you've signed in English, it's transcribing in English. And actually, Mike, it does a pretty good job. Like it's not bad. If you go through, it's not perfect. It gets some words wrong from time to time, but it's actually pretty understandable, right? If you speak another language, or if you just want to goof around with it, go into the upper right-hand corner, 3 buttons, change your language. Now it changes your browser too. So if you change to Spanish, you're going to get all the instructions that you see are going to be in Spanish, but it will begin to then translate this for you. And it's at least preliminary tests. It's actually pretty good. Like it's understandable. We did a call. I did a call with this just this week. They were in Spanish. They were asking me questions. I made them Espanol. You have to do them in Spanish. So they asked the questions in Spanish, and I knew enough to answer it without having to get any clarifying things from them. I was like, oh, were you thinking about this, this, and this? Now, Mike, a couple caveats on this. One is we're talking about a very specific subject. Yep. So when you have a very specific subject, it kind of dictates the language that you use. And so that kind of helps when you're reading a translation and the word is kind of weird. You kind of go, like, it kept translating the word coach. When they would say coach, it would translate it into English as car. Why? I don't know. It just must be that word for whatever reason in Spanish. But once I figured it out, it was car. I was like, oh, okay, well, that just means coach. Okay, I get this. Like, oh, okay, that's the concept right behind it.
It's even cool. So I actually just switched my language to Spanish, pretending I'm a Spanish speaker.
Yeah.
And as you're talking, or even right now, I'm watching myself as I'm talking, it gives it in English and Spanish. So it tells you what it is in the native language. And then right below that, it's translating as if I was a native Spanish speaker into Spanish. This is actually, now, although the translation is good, but not great, it would be an interesting way to kind of keep up with a second language if you were trying to learn it, right? So like, as I'm listening to you speak, I can obviously hear you in English, understand it, and I'm reading a somewhat good translation in Spanish, which is kind of interesting. I kind of like it because I spoke enough Spanish in high school just to get around a little bit. And so it's actually interesting to switch that into a different language if you want to, because you still get English, but now you also get Spanish or French or Italian, whatever you want to speak in.
Yeah, and it's got 30 or 50 or some ridiculous number of languages that are in there. Some of them are better than others. Let's just be really clear about this. Chinese is really good, but there's 1.4 billion Chinese speakers, Mandarin, Cantonese, traditional, simplified. That's the other way around. But so it would make sense that Microsoft, I bet, put a lot of effort into that translation, because there's between English and Chinese, there's probably a lot of that, or English and Mandarin. There's a lot of that going on. I just noticed the instance I have open here just locked up. Let me reload this here.
Well, the bust out answered our question from earlier. Coche is Spanish for both car and coach. Oh, so there you go. The same word for both. And so without context, the translator's not going to know.
Yeah. And the translator was picking car. Now, it would be great, of course, and maybe this is the way things will be in the future. I needed that in the coaching context, right? I wanted, and we were talking about coaches and not cars, but I'm human and I'm smart. I could figure that out in a couple. Like, oh, why is this saying? Oh, right. Then all of a sudden, now you stop seeing it as car, you see it as coach, and you kind of move past it. One of the things, I think one of the things, and this is like why are we talking about this on the show? Well, one, because I worked with it all week and I wanted to talk to you about it. But I think this is going to become a bigger deal in as Americans. Most of us listening to the show are probably Americans. And if you're not, thank you. Thanks for if English is not your first language and you've put up with my terrible English for the last however long you've been listening. Thanks for doing that. I appreciate it. But I think we're going to move to a spot where this becomes kind of understood that you'd provide some kind of translation service in what you're doing. Mike, it feels a little bit like when I started podcasting for the first time, and we had, we could do this on video and we could audio and all these kinds of different kinds of service. And then I stayed up late trying to figure stuff out, and I was so excited about it. With podcasting now, it's kind of like, okay, the technology is not as exciting because we've been doing it. This kind of takes me back a little bit to, to the excitement of the early days of now, doing this kind of thing with podcasting. And, so anyways, it's just super exciting to see this because you're like, ooh, this has got some potential to change the way not only I do my English podcast. So, if this got to a point where Spanish speakers or whatever would say, yeah, I'd listen to the show if I had a translation going on. Well, why wouldn't I just do this every week? Why wouldn't I have it available as a side channel to say, hey, jump in here. You can follow the translation. Why wouldn't I do that every week? Okay. May not matter for Home Gadget Geeks. Really matters for what I do at Gallup, and not just for English. So now I'm thinking, okay, I got my English podcast. I can give 50 languages the opportunity to at least listen to us in English. But now my Portuguese podcast gets the same treatment because it not just goes from English to those 50 languages. It goes from Portuguese to those 50 languages.
Yeah.
To Mandarin to those 50 languages, right? Well, there's something there with that. You kind of start thinking, oh, this is kind of interesting. Like, what will that mean for the internationalization of some of our content? I tested it on a Spanish podcast today and posted it to the Facebook group. We're doing a big learning series next week, and didn't take long for our coaches to put 2 and 2 together and go, hey, are you going to do this next week for the learning series? I don't know if I'm really ready to do it. That apparently Gavin says I really had to check if Klingon was there. It actually is. So you could get it into Klingon. Not surprising. Not surprising that you can get this translated. A couple things to think about if you're ever going to think about using the service. One, if you're controlling if you start the translate, by the way, this is free. There's no $10 a month or $20 a month or an Azure subscription, or you got to have, an E5 or an E7 plan through Microsoft. What we're using tonight's free, which is just insane. You can, so as you log in, there's a couple things that you can do. If you're going to do like what we're doing, you could you push a button. So basically what I have is a second computer that's has StreamYard open, and it's playing our two voices together. It's a unified audio channel. You had mentioned in the pre-show, Mike, we could do it where you have your mic on and I have my mic on. We're both coming into that didn't sound right. Having my mic on. That didn't sound right. We could do it that way, and you could feed your audio in and I could feed my audio in and cut out the nonsense of having it on another computer, and it worked just fine. In fact, when you speak, your name would appear, and vice versa, right?
It would probably be even better because as I interject, it would instantly switch to me instead of putting if I say yeah or whatever, it kind of throws off the translation because it adds those little yeahs or oh yeah into your translation. It would probably work.
It does. It does. Where this is a little bit different is last night we did a Zoom call with this, and I wanted to kind of test it with the community. Well, I wouldn't expect, or maybe I would. I was going to say I wouldn't expect them to use this too, but why couldn't they? If in a sense, so they could then turn their mic on and speak their. I mean, you could do this now. By the way, if audience guys, if you're listening, the microphone button works for you. So in the bottom right-hand corner is a microphone button. You could click on it and start speaking. No audio is coming through, so it's not a big deal. We're not going to hear you. We would see your comments in our transcript, and that would be perfectly fine. Where this comes in handy, Mike, is if I wanted to take questions, I wanted to take questions from someone who's non-English, I could take questions in here and then answer them, right?
That's
how
huge.
cool would that be if it was integrated with StreamYard?
Right.
That would be pretty cool.
Integrated with the comment section in YouTube.
Yeah.
Right, where it's just throwing that over.
Yeah,
I'm interested. So, Bust Out commented on the Spanish word. Gavin said translation. So I mean, for Bust Out or Gavin or anyone else in chat who speaks another language natively, is it doing a pretty decent job? And is it conversational, right? Is it doing a good job? Or the differences between, the hardest part about learning another language is just like the things they say, or I don't know how you say them, what idiosyncrasies of how we speak, right? The little mannerisms or things we shorten. And I've always wondered how good of a job it does at that. As I'm reading in English and Spanish, it seems to do a pretty good job. But again, I don't speak Spanish fluently.
Yeah.
So.
Bust Out did say it shows in the transcripts, it shows his user ID and identifies that he is in Spanish mode. So he wrote this in Spanish and it translated it back to English for us. And he says, it is interesting that the translation correctly distinguished between Mike, M-I-K-E, and the person, and Mike, the microphone. So M-I-C and M-I-C and M-I-K-E. So listen, is this going to cure cancer? No, right? You're like, Jim, why are you getting so excited about this? It's the early stages of something that I think is pretty cool. Especially, I mean, if I could have one superpower, it would be to speak every language. Like I don't want to be strong. I don't want to fly. I don't need to just run fast. Go through walls. I'd want to speak every language. That would be, especially in the job that I have, that would be incredible, right?
And what I love about this was how easy it was for other people to join, right? Because, Brian brings up a good point. There's really good real-time translators in iOS and Android, but for a podcasting platform, how easy that was to, and actually what happened between you and me was you sent me a link to an old conversation that had been closed. It brings you up to a page where you just enter the conversation ID. What's your name? And go. Right. So that's go to this page. Hey, this is the conversation ID. And I was in like with no drama, no heartache. That's pretty cool.
Dan brings up a good point. He says, will it always be free? Nothing. There's never always, never, in business, right? Microsoft has transcribing in Word Online, and I think it was unlimited initially, but the last time I checked, it's a 300 minute a month now. Could be an issue if you rely on it at work. That's absolutely true. So as I'm testing this, I showed this to one of my teammates today. He got super excited. He was like, hey, like this could really change the game on some things. I said, yeah, but if we're going to use this way, me using it for a podcast is one thing. Us using it for a conference where people paid money to show up and there's an expectation that'll be there. We better have a chat with Microsoft just to make sure, like, hey, we have a big EA agreement with them. So it's kind of worth a conversation, I think, at some point. We're in the early stages of this. I'm still kind of testing this to see if it's really going to be good enough, right, at this point. I don't think for every language in every way, this is still good enough yet, Mike. I just, it's still got some quirky things about it. I got to get those kinds of things figured out. You can, in the control panel, you can leave your mic on, which is kind of cool. There's a switch that says just leave your mic on. So that's what we're doing. If you switch that off, every time you want to talk, you just push to talk. And you'd think, well, I'd want to do that most of the time. Yeah, you're right. You don't leave your mic on because it'll start transcribing everything you say. And today I was doing some stuff and I left it on and I said, what the hell? And like right there, everybody could see it, right? And yeah, that's not really cursing too bad, but you can determine whether you want to leave the mic on. In the control panel, if I start the conversation, I can mute others if I want, so I could click that and you guys couldn't say anything in it. It would just be one way conversation, which maybe for the podcast we'll do. I don't know. We'll have to see. I can mask profanity and I can lock the conversation so nobody new can come in. You can kind of get it going and then lock it down so nobody's going on. There is speech output, so it's got that voice.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
So
I have it disabled right now. And I don't know. I'm having trouble.
I'm in all Spanish, so I can't even read the.
Yeah, you got to change that back to English. You can. There's a toggle for showing original message. So Mike, you can set it so you can see, okay, what did the original language say, and then right below it'll have the translated, and you can have up to 5 languages translated at a time. So you can set up to 5, so it can have the original and then how it's translated in 5 different languages, which I think is pretty cool. One of the things Brian says, there's a nice real-time translator in iOS. In Android, yeah, they don't work. They would never work for me this way. I can't do it off my phone. I need this to be, I kind of need this to be on a computer. Also, some of those real-time translators that are on your phone, they're push button, and then so you say something and it's anticipating a 20 or 30 second sentence, and then it'll play it back in the translated form or translate it for you. Or this is staying on.
This is cool. One of the things Brian says, there's a nice real-time.
Oh, is that coming through to you?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not supposed to come through to you.
No, that's super cool. Like that just shows you can turn on a voice and it'll read it. It'll kind of read it back to you. Bust Out says, I've had several conversations with non-English speakers using Google Translate. And listen, I use Google Translate all the time. It's a super cool tool. Surprisingly good. I've talked with people that spoke Mandarin, Japanese, and Indian. Hindi, is that Hindi? Bust Out on that. So a real common language in India. So there's some, I think the coolest part is the additional languages you can kind of translate. Like you can have 3 or 4 or 5 languages at a time going on. You see that setting, Mike, on the setting side, you go down to the bottom, it's got a little pencil.
Yep.
And you can choose that. You're getting other voices in your ears, aren't you?
Yeah, now I am. It's kind of cool.
You are indeed. So Busted also says, I've never been able to connect with those people otherwise. So cool. Google Translate has a conversation mode where it stays on and auto detects the language. So good. I kind of needed an enterprise version to do this. And I think I've kind of found it. Mike, what are your thoughts? Just seeing this initially, give me your first impressions.
Well, it's a perfect example of it's starting to become more accessible than just, we talked about the apps on the iPhones, right? And the Androids where it can do one-to-one conversation, but this shows me, and your podcasting example is the perfect way to put this into context of how this could really be beneficial, to the masses, right? Because the podcast scenario is perfect because you're in a scenario where you don't speak the native language. You're in a conversation where it's in a different language. And plus the audience could be in, like you said, 10 different languages, right? You could have German listeners, Spanish listeners, Mandarin listeners, whatever it is. And it just works for each of them to be hearing and listening. And actually, the hearing wasn't bad. I had that turned on and I had to play with my Go XLR to turn the routing, so I wasn't routing that back to you. But it actually wasn't bad. She was picking up the nuances okay and kind of picking up the pauses and using it decently. So this to me is just, again, showing the kind of the commercial side of this. And we talked in pre-show a little bit how, we've been seeing and hearing about the earphones that will do this translation automatically. And with this sort of tech and that getting a lot better, I was asking you, like, is it going to be beneficial anymore to learn a second language, or is this just going to become standard? This kind of reminds me how math is still important, basic math, but like, is the memorization of your times table still important when your calculator is truly in your pocket? Where all of our teachers back in the day were like, you're not going to carry around a calculator in your pocket every day, and now we do. You're not going to carry around a translator with you. Well, now we kind of do, right? And in the future, are we going to? So it's just going to be interesting, right? I think it's still obviously very important if you could do this natively, but this breaks down a lot of barriers.
Yeah, I just think about doing a podcast where I'm on it, and they're speaking Portuguese, let's just say, which is a language until I started working with them, I never had heard before. Right?
I've never heard Portuguese. Yeah,
all of Brazil, of course, but I just that just didn't ever really come across it. So our partners in Brazil are fantastic. I just love those guys. And so they're speaking Portuguese. I'm English, and then you might have somebody in Germany piping in with a question in German that gets translated to Portuguese for them and English for me. And then we can answer back. I can answer back in English that gets translated to Portuguese and German so they can understand that. And then the Portuguese could follow up with the conversation and put, you all of a sudden,
it really doesn't matter, right? Like what language?
I think it's going to need some more work, but I'm all in on this. Like, I think I have found the next, like, I want to take this thing to the next level and use this a lot in what we're doing. Cause it's, when I was only doing English podcasts, I didn't even think about it. It's like, well, if you can't understand English, you're probably not interested in what I'm going to say anyways. But at work, that's different. That's a different story. There's different expectations on it. And I'm really getting more interested in that multilingual conversation, because that's what we do, right? We create these conversations. John's going to bed. John, like Tony said, you're retired, dude. Seriously. Like, you don't have a bedtime anymore. Okay. Gavin says, I want to use this on those Chinese spam calls I keep getting. I'll know what they're trying to sell me. Yeah, you don't want to buy what they're trying to sell you. This is cool too. At work, we use Language Line, which is a real life interpreter via their iPad app, even in sign language.
Oh, wow.
We have been having some conversations about how can we support ASL. American Sign Language it's completely different. I mean, I know this is going to sound like duh when I say it's a completely different language, but they interpret English to begin with. They don't think of it as a translation. They think of it as an interpretation of it. And then it's 3-dimensional. It's both hands and face and facial expressions and there's symbols associated with those, right? They're not spelling every word.
Right.
And so I've been sitting in on some discussions to say, how could we support American Sign Language from a technology side of things? Like, how could I so now we can do multiple languages. Okay, this is working. Yeah. But how can I support American Sign Language without having to have an interpreter? Because that's the barrier.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and Brian's kind of a unique standpoint where in healthcare, that's an area where you don't want to get the interpretation wrong, right? Like, I don't want to learn that heart and leg are the same thing in Spanish, right? They're not. But you know what I mean? Like, those are things. I want surgery on my leg. It's like, oh, we operate on your heart. Dang it. Those are the same word in Spanish, and Microsoft got it wrong, right? Like, so that's a very important use case to have the translator. But you're totally right on ASL. I mean, that's a much more complex thing to get into something like this.
Yeah, well, while deepfake is only being used for bad, right? Deepfake technology, it's really I haven't seen one really good use of it yet.
No,
it's all bad. Deepfake could be a technology the same technology that goes into the mimicry of a face. ASL is a face problem, right? That's you need to recreate a face saying something, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it directly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm not saying it directly relates to it, but think about that if I could create a set of hands and a face and be able to train that to do signs and facial expressions based on the interpretation of English.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, all of a sudden now I could just provide a little ASL box in the corner that has its signing. Why wouldn't I?
Right. It's Jim doing the ASL translation, your face.
You could be. It could be, or
yeah.
it just could be a generic face and two hands.
Yeah. But
Right.
like the deep fake stuff going off of that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That could be, we could literally have it be your face doing the translation. That's interesting.
Gavin says, I'm afraid a bad translation one day will cause a war. And hopefully, that's one of those kinds of things. While I was doing this, I didn't completely understand a question, and I should have stopped and asked. Like, I just kind of kept going, and then later I realized I'd made a mistake, and I'm like, oh, I didn't really fully understand your question. I should have stopped to clarify. So yeah, you're right. It's good to ask questions and not get mad the first time you hear something. Bust Out says you might have heard Portuguese and just mistaken it for Spanish. That's very true. They're similar. They're not the same. They're similar in some ways. I don't know Portuguese, but I can have a good conversation with someone that speaks it because it's fairly familiar. They share some words. I mean, Spain and Portugal,
all those
close to
love languages, right?
Yeah. And so Latin
romantic
languages. Yeah, romantic. Well, love, romantic. See that you just translated. You just did a poor translation.
Exactly. Same thing. Similar.
Gavin says, and then there's Portuguese, and from Portugal, and there's Brazilian Portuguese.
It's like there's English and there's Jim English. Like they're
right.
They're different dialects.
There's Jinglish. We were doing Spanish today, and the guest was from Puerto Rico, and she's like, when I told her we were doing this translation stuff, she's like, oh, my Spanglish is gonna no, how's it gonna handle that? Because her English was really good and her Spanish was really good, but sometimes those start combining for her.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
In that, Tony or Brian says, that's amazing, especially the ASL part. Yeah. Listen, this all started when I sat in on a Zoom call that had a live translator on it, and you could choose your language. And then when the person was speaking in not in your language, the translator would come on for you. It was like United Nations, I felt super important. I was like, I'm getting a live translation. Yeah. And then we would speak. Of course, we wouldn't hear it, but that same person then would flip over and speak. This was Portuguese in this case, and it just so moved me. And like, we got to do better. We got to do better. Did I lock up for you? Am I okay?
No, you're good for me.
So it looks like I was maybe some bandwidth issues going on. I got disconnected from the service. So let's see if I can get this thing started again. It looks like the translator stopped, and there we go. It's back up again. So it is something you have to kind of keep an eye on. Again, not sure it's totally ready for prime time, but it's worth a try. Tony says, I'm amazed by watching them communicate in ASL. The interpreters of all languages are so helpful. That is a skill. Like,
yes.
First of all, what we do as humans, speaking any language, is amazing, right? Knowing two languages and being able to speak in those is incredible. The real skill is these translators, right? Who can interpret basically across both languages,
especially at concerts. Have you ever seen a translator at a rap concert? It is the best thing ever. Like their facial expressions and it's fantastic. I watched a few YouTube videos. That's a talent right there. First of all, to go that fast, and second of all, they put in a facial, like you said, it's 3-dimensional, right? For ASL.
Yeah.
And I think it's fantastic.
Alex says, I only seen ASL for live performances when it's quicker than closed captions, and I didn't know about this about ASL until I started looking into it. Closed captioning is not always a replacement for ASL. Some deaf signers aren't great at reading.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah. So it is kind of depends just on education and some of the things they've had. So just providing transcripts is not being inclusive from that standpoint, right? If you're really trying to be inclusive on some of these things. So Alex kind of says, so would having faster closed captions take it the way they need for ASL? It depends on the audience, just to be honest, Alex. Really depends on the audience. And I did grow up going to a school that had deaf students, deaf and hearing impaired. So I learned to sign when I was a kid. I couldn't do it anymore. I know the alphabet, but I think in the ASL circles, they really like to have interpreters there. And the problem is, the barrier is availability of interpreters and the cost. It wouldn't make any sense here at Home Gadget Geeks, because it would be, probably be $100 a show to have an interpreter do the show. I can't do that. I mean, but if I could have some technology that would do it.
For sure.
Right.
I just started. I'm trying to remember my sign language in Spanish. I just remember I got to D. I was like A, B, C, D, E, and
I think it's
F. That's where I got G. I think you're right.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a work. We've been talking about this. We've had some meetings with both hearing and deaf individuals, and we've had an interpreter with us on Zoom. It's kind of cool. Like, I am like, wow, I am, one, I'm privileged because I can hear, I can see, I can understand it all. And then just to watch what they're doing, is pretty incredible. Like, I'm moved. I mean, every time I do it, I am moved by it in the conversations they have. Same as we think about, and didn't intend to talk about ASL tonight, but the potential here to do some to do some really, really cool things with other languages. And Brian says, be careful not to flash gang signs.
That's a high probability with my lack of ASL knowledge.
I wouldn't even know I was doing it. So
and Mike's a crib now. Okay, cool.
Well, I hope you found it interesting. I know it's I showed it one time on the screen. We talked more about it than anything else. I hope you could kind of visualize, if you head out to translator.microsoft.com, just sign in with your Microsoft account, and you can give this a try too. It's pretty cool. It's we're going to continue. And I think, Mike, I'm going to continue to provide it as a service for Home Gadget Geeks when you come out live. I don't think we have that many that probably come out live that don't know English, like, because I haven't provided any kind of translation services in the past, but you never know. We are definitely going to blow this thing out of Gallup. Like, I mean, I am hoping this is something that I can make, some folks today were like, oh, it's kind of hard to keep up. It was hard for someone who knew, I had a German speaking individual today say it was really difficult to read the German translations and then listen to it in English because I understand the English. And so I was getting, it was just frying my brain.
Yeah.
To do both.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So good stuff. Appreciate you guys hanging on through that. I know that was kind of a nerdy conversation, but I kind of wanted to share. Mike, any updates on any of your stuff from a tech perspective? The truck is definitely out, right?
Yeah.
We found that last week. No truck, no F-150.
Not yet.
Coming?
I'm still waiting. So they're still doing waves of invites, and the last invite was last Thursday. And no, didn't get my email. So still waiting on that invite to come in. We'll see whenever that does. And ever since then, it's kind of been, Jim, I'm taking your advice on the Unraid box, right? Because we talked about this over the break. Is I upgraded everything. It's running great. Sits at an average of about 25 to 30% utilization. Remember, this is running a VM that's running all of my security cameras. Yeah. It's running everything. And you said, don't overload this thing. Don't start adding more. Just be happy with it for a while. So, Jim, I took your advice. I'm happy with it. And lo and behold, I've had zero issues. I miss having to log into it because I'm like, oh, there's no issues to fix and there's nothing to do besides my Cox internet going out, which I will say, this is just, kind of another plug for Uptime Kuma. I mentioned this last time. It's, it's a self-hosted uptime tracker, and I use it to track things like when my internet goes out. And now, obviously, the notifications to the Discord don't work when the internet's out, but it's locally hosted, so I can just go log in and see when it went out. So I've been able to track all these internet outages with Uptime Kuma and when they happen, how long they happen. So that's been really cool for me. So just another plug for that. That was the most recent addition and the only addition to Unraid in the last 2 weeks, and it's been a good one. Been really enjoying it. The graphical interface is really nice for that.
We are off next week, so no live show. We'll skip a week, give you a week to catch up on podcasts, maybe where you've gotten behind. Although if you hear that now and you've already caught up, do you need to catch up? I don't know. Get caught up so you're live with us. Weird time dilation podcasting stuff.
I do that all the time on these podcasts where I listen to the most recent, but I've skipped a few weeks and then they say that I'm like, oh yeah, well, I do have time now to go back and listen to the backlog.
Yeah, I can't go back in time like that. I have a really hard time listening to a podcast. I need to listen to them in order.
Okay.
I don't know why.
For me, it depends on the type of content. Like for us, we're talking about different topics. It's not like we're a story podcast where it's leading into the next thing. I guess if you're following along in the T-Mobile saga, or if you're in the middle of what I was going through Unraid frustration, that might make sense to listen to.
Yeah, it's just hard to put those together. Bustet says he's been seeing a lot of those Rivian trucks around lately. I saw a whole car carrier full of them here in Omaha.
Oh, really? In Omaha?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, well, it's actually down here in Bellevue.
Okay.
It's like, whoa.
Off at Air Force Base, ordered up a bunch of Rivians.
Yeah, I guess so. Just driving the generals around in them.
Yeah.
Mike has made it pretty clear. He's waiting for the Ford. So
I am.
You can't
waiting for the Ford.
You can't talk him out of it. So no show next week. Gavin Campbell's joining us the week after that, the 10th of February. He is coming back. We're gonna have a good time with him. Christian Johnson is back on the 17th to talk about what he didn't talk about last time I was here, which was his home theater. He's building a really sweet home theater. So we're going to catch up with him with that. We've got Ryan and Bob from Think Computers coming back here in March, early March. John Biggs is committed to joining us in April. So we got some folks ahead. It's the end of the year already, Mike. Like it's boom, it's gone. It's already here. We're already at the end of 2022. Not really true, but we have a lot of shows between now and then. Big thanks. I mentioned Christian. Big thanks to Christian for, of course, hosting, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. And Home Gadget Geeks just doesn't, I'm not even going to say it, because as soon as I say it, it'll happen. Great service. Plans start as little as $10 a month.
Down for you, it'll go down for me.
That's true.
You're at zero risk here.
That's true. Maybe I should start talking crap about Unraid, and then
no, don't do it. So rock solid.
Your Unraid box would just would stop working. We're going to take it out to the Discord group here in a few minutes. So, folks, if you're listening live, as soon as we wrap up, I'm going to hit end broadcast. Mike and I are going to chat for a few minutes, and then head over to Discord, and we're going to jump in there, and that'll just be open audio if you want to come in. Nobody shows up. Mike and I'll talk and stare at each other, and not really. I mean,
we won't even stare at each other. Just the audio.
Yeah,
I'll be picking my nose over here. So.
But would love to. Yeah, probably me too. Probably love to see you over there. Discord again. theaverageguy.tv/Discord. If you're not, get signed up. If you don't use it, it's okay. It is the most unspamming service ever. I've just never gotten. You
can even control notifications down to like a channel by channel level within a server. It's awesome.
It's the nerdiest thing ever.
It's the best thing ever. If I could get everyone to talk on Discord, I would.
We are live. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live, and love to have you. If you're listening to this as a podcast, we'd love to have you join us live as well. It's just more fun that way. Thanks to Bust Out Brian, Peter, Tony, Joe was out there a little bit earlier. John, who had to go to, I think his mom was like, John, it's time for bed. So John had to go to bed. Gavin, he won't hear. I wonder if he'll hear that. He'll probably not be happy with me after he hears that. Thank you, guys. Uncle Marv, thanks for coming out tonight. We will see you over on the Discord side for the post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.